Hello, everyone. This is Manoj Tandon. Welcome to another episode of Dark Rhino Security, Security Confidential. Today, we are honored to have Ranbir Bhutani join us. Ranbir is an expert in all things cybersecurity. He's a vCISO. He's been in the business for a long time. He's the CEO of CyberCulture, LLC. He's also a partner at Ingram Advisory Group. He's got an education from the University of Maryland Global Campus, a master's in cybersecurity. He's the real thing. Welcome to the show, Ranbir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Manoj, for the introduction. I really appreciate it.
Hey, so, there's a couple things we want to start with. Tell us about Ingram Partners and CyberCulture. What are these two organizations? Like, what's the mission here?
Yeah, no, definitely. Ingram Advisory Group just joined their partnership recently, and it pretty much their focus is more advisory level from a cybersecurity and strategic standpoint, helping organizations of any size, as far as working with their C-level or board of directors and trying to solve a problem as far as securing their data. Not technically virtual CISO, but more advisory than anything else. So definitely a great company. Especially working with the CEO and just the synergies. We're really doing big things. I can't say too much about it, but I just leave it at that. You definitely may see some posts on LinkedIn in the near future. So that's Ingram Advisory Group, and that's the company I definitely joined. Also, startup. CyberCulture, on the other hand, as to your question, I launched the business in August of 2020 because I finally realized that there is a need on the consulting side for companies, private, public, even on the federal sectors, for somebody to come in as an expert, regardless of background, cybersecurity or technology, or let's say even human resources as an example. The point was there was a need for somebody to come in and help solve a problem, see the bigger picture, because truth be told is going into any organization, and some of them have some form of cybersecurity program in place, or if none at all, let's say if they're smaller or medium sized, even the larger organizations sometimes may need some guidance for somebody to come in and just see the bigger picture from understanding their business and how to secure their data from a very strategic level. So naturally proving that cybersecurity is a sound return on investment in the case if they were to experience a ransomware, and it's a $5 million ransomware, which happened a few years ago, as you're aware, and naturally, yes, they had a whole security team, and naturally, sometimes you need a third party coming in to give you that guidance and that advice to help you as far as solving a problem and securing your data.
So let me ask you at a personal level, why not take a cushy job in the corporate world as a CISO rather than deal with all the vagaries of the vCISO world?
Well, that's a great question. Why not? Right? So naturally, if you think about it, CISOs are already a rock in a hard place. Let's say their maximum time spent in any organization, 2 years, 3 years pushing it. I've done everything that I possibly could and helping the organization, from developing a program, compliance, to developing an operations center, using third party. But naturally, sort of there's a lifespan, because at the end of the day, you can only do so much for the company. And CISOs are still a rock in a hard place. I don't want to hear it, because people tell me, no, they're on the board. No, they report to CTO, CIO, COO.
Right.
Those roles have specific specialization on what they do. Chief Operating Officer, their focus is operations. They're not going to know cyber. Chief Technical Officer, maybe the technologies, the cybersecurity technologies, they're not going to know cyber, understand it. Cybersecurity ultimately has become its own entity and always has been. It just, unfortunately, has always been wrapped under IT. So naturally, the CISO is like, well, I'm sort of the mediocre, the middleman. It's like, I don't know if you ever see those little memes on LinkedIn where you see the board, the big boys table, or the big gals table, and then you see the little kids table. So the CISO's right there, right? So it's just like, okay, well, why am I still here, right? Why am I not a chief cybersecurity executive officer?
But why has that developed that way? What's your opinion on it?
It's interesting. So going back to my 20 plus years, or going back in time where antivirus was good enough, right? Like, hey, you're secure.
Oh, even today, we're going to do a little Mythbusters thing here in a second, but let's please carry on.
Jokes aside,
Yeah.
CISOs are finally starting to get that respect, but hence the going the virtual CISO route, and this circles back to your question, to where they can come in and really understand the organization and really solve a problem even for a limited time. Like, let's say they spend 10 to 15 hours a month with the company. Within a year, I think they can get them up to speed. So yes, so from a virtual CISO standpoint, naturally it makes sense to come in and guide them, because as an outsider coming in and not being part of corporate America, for example, back to your question, kind of being all over the place, but in the sense that corporate America gives you very limitations as a CISO. Because let's say, like, you go back to the board and you're like, okay, well, we have all these vulnerabilities we need to address, but the C-level executives, they don't understand that language. Like, it's very technical for them, right? And CISOs,
Right.
a lot of times CISOs are very technical, but the technical jargon stays with the technical team. And the way I see it, especially coming in a virtual CISO, I keep it very strategic, very high level, showing them the dollars and cents with few data points. And that's, not selling, but sharing that that's one of my deliverables, because now it tells them a story saying, okay, well, how much money would have cost us if we were to be breached, right?
No, do you have a methodology that you use for that, Ranbir?
Oh yeah, it's very easy actually. It's actually a CISSP question, single loss expectancy, right? You take the value of your asset, your digital assets, physical assets, time it by, let's say, 25%. Let's say that as a loss, and then you can actually calculate, risk in terms of numbers, and it makes it very easy. And it's naturally, you don't need all the finances of an organization, but at least understanding the cost value of all their assets, their digital assets, what they pay for IT, mostly IT related services. So naturally, like, as being a very high level deliverable on a pretty bar graph, for example, it just shows them the bigger picture. And that's very strategic. And now to them, that makes sense, rather than throwing them a vulnerability report that has
they're not going to understand
100 different findings. C-level CEO is going to be like, I don't know, what is this? Does this make us money? No.
So let's do a little myth busting here. All right. So first myth. I buy the latest and greatest product stack, and I have 100% cybersecurity. Your thoughts on that?
Not true. You can never have 100% cybersecurity. It is ongoing cycle, down to security training and awareness of your staff and employees, so they don't go click happy, downloading some phishing or ransomware. If they just see something suspicious, they instantly can report it, because they're getting that training. Let's say, I mean, this may be a little bit tough, but as far as monthly I'd push monthly trainings, because a lot of those employees will just like read past the trainings or go through them quickly.
Oh yeah.
Review them to say, okay, well, I didn't do anything wrong. Well, you introduced malware, and all of a sudden now you're costing us $2 million. And I'm not saying that employee will get terminated, but it goes to show that, educating your employees is very, very important and crucial to understanding cybersecurity as a whole. That's one suggestion and recommendation. And another recommendation is an ambassador program, and have each department have a designated ambassador to train their employees from time to time, or even to do some some games with them, or some type of incentives, just giving ideas. So
no, that's a great. In fact, it gets to the part is CyberCulture LLC the name of your firm? Are you trying to say something? Are you trying to establish a culture of cybersecurity in the organization?
Yes, it's interesting you bring it up. Hence the name of the business and the day that I thought of it, because I'm like, well, what am I trying to do here? I want to change. I am changing the culture of cybersecurity forever. I know I'm doing it, as some of the clients that I'm working with, so they understand that now it's even bigger than anything else out there. I mean, there's over 700,000 cyber jobs.
Oh yeah,
that are out there and this is in the U.S.
More than that, I think there's a ton of roles
this
open.
Is Deloitte posted an article not long ago. Those numbers kind of are skewed because it's a lot bigger than that. But again, everybody's getting the idea, right? That our field is growing. So here's the catch, though, right? I don't think a lot of organizations are getting, even in the product line, especially from a cybersecurity standpoint, right? Naturally, what's to say if you bring a virtual CISO plus, let's say, collaboration with somebody from the product line selling, the cybersecurity product from the sales side, and sort of it becomes a 2-for-1. because not only do you have an expert with you, but also they're not going off script, because naturally is, let's say trying to sell a client a product per se, right? But again, it goes down to where you start at the top, you understand the organization, it becomes very strategic, and then you solve a problem by introducing some of the technologies that they're lacking or needing. And that's, again, it's a no-brainer, right, to bring guys like us or gals like us, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you know what? You mentioned the everyday employee in the company. They are the largest cybersecurity asset, right? And you had some good ideas there. Do monthly training, get an ambassador in place. What about there's companies that have adopted penalizing measures as part of their policies. That should employees be penalized, or are we better off with a different approach to this?
That's a very interesting question, because that word just sounds like, okay, well, now you're in trouble.
Yeah,
Well,
and there was one company that we go unmentioned, that if you failed your phishing attempts 3 times, you got fired. And I don't know. That
no,
seems. You know what?
no,
I won't report it.
I don't agree.
I'll just not tell
I
you.
don't agree with terminating employees because they failed an exam. Not everybody's great at exams, because people get really nervous or anxious taking exams or
Right.
tests. I totally get it, right? Everybody's feeling and experience is different. But a lot of leaders of companies fail to understand that when you put that hold over your employees, that is a trifecta. Actually, that puts a negative impact to the business. You may actually start losing employees. And because, again, the cyber field, the supply is minuscule compared to the demand right now.
Right.
So it's not like we couldn't get corporate jobs anywhere. Well, that's not my
Sure.
goal. My goal is changing the culture of cybersecurity, in the sense that where now it's its own entity. And until organizations start listening, because we're given 2 years, then we're still in that same boat where we're still going down that same path. Well, let's go reactionary. Oh, we've been hacked. Now let's get a vCISO to come fix our hacking and breaching problem. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
How do you get the employees engaged then? How do you get them to understand the why of what you are doing so they play ball?
That's a great question. Educate them. Share the knowledge, have them understand. Whether they're interested or not doesn't matter. They're hearing some of that information, right? Heck, even offer some incentives. I'm not talking about even compensation. Maybe make a game out of it. Make it fun, right? I mean, why are we all working? Why are we working for a company, or we have our own businesses? Why we're doing it because A, we're really passionate about, or B, sometimes people chase the money. I mean, hey, whatever floats your boat, doesn't matter. It's all relative in the sense that, like, when you educate, because we're here to knowledge share, right? Like,
Right.
And it doesn't cost anything to knowledge share, rather than you say, okay, well, instead of giving knowledge, I'll give you a $5,000 bonus. Okay, well, that's going to make them excited for 2 seconds. And then,
Right.
after taxes, life goes on. So
Yeah, exactly. Right? Well, let's do another quick myth here. There's a whole bunch of people that think, well, I achieved compliance, so that's good enough. I'm done with cyber.
Yeah,
What's your thoughts?
but to your myth, some companies think that cyber insurance protects them from being hacked. I'm not kidding you.
Oh, please. Okay. Please get into that.
We could talk about this for hours, but you know what I'm talking about. So to your point is that, it just goes back to say, well, it doesn't stop. It's ongoing, right? So let's say you have these programs in place. You have, like, you're basically top notch. Like, you got the technologies, you got the program, you got the people. Now what? Well, it's going to be ongoing. The hackers, just like we're in business on, protecting organizations and helping them understand, they're in business. They have their tools. Heck, they're probably using our tool, open source. A lot of it's open source, with a huge price tags, it's invented by the really smart folks with PhDs and, coding, encryption. I go on and on. But point is that it goes back to say, okay, well, technology is one thing, it breaks, but also how to get through to employees so they understand that, this is ongoing. And when you throw some games, some incentive, and cybersecurity is actually really fun. It's not code, and it's not like you need to use a super secret password. That's a very, very small part of it, right? And
it can be, if you bring the end users into it and you actually show them how they get hacked. that can be, there's an entertainment value to that.
There is,
Because the people won't realize how innocent everyday tasks can mess you up.
and it does. And like, fine, some folks in your HR or accounts payable or operations or maintenance, like if you make a game out of it and you offer some incentives, like okay, gift card to a really nice restaurant like Ruth Chris, and again, yeah,
Yeah.
it may cost the company dollars, but it's minuscule dollars, right? That's really the point is everybody having fun, everybody interacting, and sort of not sitting in those silos anymore. And an ambassador
So
program is amazing for that, because now you have a resource dedicated from each department or business unit coming together, and now they're communicating. So subconsciously, they don't realize it, but the program does it.
So as a vCISO, why do you think companies are so reactionary to the business problem of cybersecurity? It seems
It's because all of a sudden we owe X amount of dollars or millions, depending on the ransomware is, and 9 times out of 10, I'll say, here, don't pay it. They already have your code, they already have your data. It's being sold on the dark web. Let's face the facts. But now, what can we do to prevent that from happening in the future? Right. That's one aspect of it, and the other aspect is that you sort of say, okay, well, cybersecurity is quite important, and the protection of your data has value added to it as well. So you go back and you say, okay, well, we got to ensure that coming in as a virtual CISO, you provide that guidance, you provide that support. If that makes sense, right?
It does. Now, is there any thoughts or ideations you might have on how do we take cybersecurity from a cost center to a revenue center? A lot of the enabling technologies have dual uses. There's a lot of things you can do with them if you're creative. So do you have any thoughts on this potentially?
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question, right? Because everybody assumes, or the top assumes, that it is cost. It's going to cost us millions of dollars for this technology, these people, these resources to just protect our data. That's one aspect of it. But nobody's thinking the future, right? So if in the case they were to get hacked, and they go into that reactionary mode, and then they have to spend all these dollars, because not only it's the cost of whatever the ransomware or phishing, but also they're in the media, so they can lose customer base. So that can be 10, 15, 20% of their customer base. They're like, okay, they're shareholders. It's a publicly traded company. That's a big deal, right? Because shareholders will start, like, especially I'm talking about the big dollar value shareholders. I mean that.
Oh yeah,
that's
I think
percentage of business, right?
Oh yeah, I mean Target, I think, put it in their annual report that they lost $300 million in sales or something to that effect because of the breach that they had.
Because
it was so long ago.
Yeah, no, it was so long ago, but and people forget, but it was an HVAC contractor because it goes back to the Internet of Things and segmenting your networks, right? I'm not going to get too technical here, but that's another piece of it. So a lot of organizations will put everything on one network, and it's like, okay, well, so you have your databases that has PII, or personally identifiable information, can communicate with your web servers. Now we have bigger problems.
Oh, and your websites might have open databases on the back end. I mean, there's a number of things that we can get into that could be issues that a lot of people, which I guess I was going to go here much later, but a lot of companies, when you talk about frameworks, are you implementing zero trust? Are you using NIST CSF? Are you addressing the CISA top 18, whatever the case may be? They think that these are heavy investments and very difficult to do. And I'm going to pick on zero trust because it's been marketed to death, right?
Oh my God, has it?
Right.
Please
so
proceed.
Can a small medium business, somebody with 100 employees, 50 employees, really consider zero trust to be in bounds for their organization?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Regardless of organization size, right? Zero trust, I would share with you, is, to me at least, in my understanding, it's a concept, right? It's a concept of using certain technologies to segregate users accessing your applications, whether it's SaaS, on-premises based applications, perhaps a hybrid of a mix of the two, where resources from different inner departments can only have access to the tools that they need to do their job, right? That's the truth. That's my understanding of zero trust.
That's what it is, and it's least privileged access in many different ways. If you follow that concept through your entire asset base, you will have established to. You'll never get 100%, but you'll get pretty good. You'll have a good, solid foundation.
Well, yeah, no, and the great question lies is active, your list of users, groups, departments, and how it was originally developed to your organization. Now, if it was developed spaghetti, how I've seen in many organizations, then you have bigger problems because you have a maintenance resource has access to network tools. Why are they part of that in the networking group? That makes absolutely no sense. So who's auditing? Who's keeping track? So zero trust really goes back to an auditing component. It's more of a compliancy than anything else. So there are organizations that are really locked down as far as groups having like different departments and down to the user level having access to only what they need based on their job title and responsibility. So there's your zero trust right there. But then now it goes to your cloud-based applications and limiting that. And again, it's just giving them the read write. I mean, it's a privilege. It's the least privileged access. Like if it goes down to need to know. Well, why does accounts payable need to know what's going on in the security group or IT group?
Because they can.
Doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Unless they have an ulterior motive to all of a sudden gain that access because nobody's watching and there was, nobody auditing, and all of a sudden that person perhaps may be collaborating with a hacker or organized cyber criminal or cyber espionage, disgruntled employee. Now, I mean, that's going down a very in-depth path, but this is
I was going to ask, like, how big do you think that insider threat is? Let me rephrase that: the malicious insider threat versus the guy that just clicked on a link.
Well, yeah, I'm going to go here on a limb, right? So regardless of what company and coming from the corporate world, unfortunately, it's sort of stuck in limbo and it's very dated as far as how things are trickled down from the management structure.
Sure.
So that's one point of it. And the other case is sort of where, the limitations are, right? As far as, where, regardless of where you go, corporate world, or you have your own business. So really it's sort of kind of all over the place right now is the way I feel, right?
So when we get into getting back to zero trust here real quick, if inside your environment you've established a good program foundationally based on it, then you are in the mode of acquiring companies. You don't know what those acquisitions have or don't have. What's your guidance to companies that are going through those processes of how to assimilate those bought entities into your infrastructure and not get totally wiped out?
Well, it's really a great question because one of my clients, right, I'm not saying the name, but just as a general rule of thumb. So as far as a risk review for mergers and acquisitions, since private equity firm owns them, they do typically, as their virtual CISO, I do a security risk review, covers their encryption, their SaaS, and it does a very, very high level based on color coding, right? Whether it's low, medium, high findings. Like if they don't have MFA implemented, right, that would be a red, for example, and little pretty graphs. There's no tool, there's no secret to it. I know depending on what works best for you as a virtual CISO, but that gives them the 10,000 foot view of what's going on in their organization prior to, let's say, buying a company. Like, let's say if they're really in the red and their confidence level is really low because they don't have IDS, IPS, or they don't have antivirus, endpoint protection, their assets are on Windows, some of them are on Windows XP. You still have a Windows XP box and you're using Windows Home. So, these things sort of pull like a little bit of a red flag. And again, not getting too technical and keeping it very, very strategic. Naturally, when you go to the seller and show them this, then that gives them an idea of if they want to move forward with the company or they just need to have, these are costs that are going to be associated when they go into the business as far as being in the green zone. Or even perhaps sometimes yellow is okay, but you definitely want to be in the green zone, right?
Yeah. Well, so let's get into as far as green zone goes, and cloud infrastructure. So that's another favorite part, and it's again in the zero trust umbrella. So there's this notion that if they're on Amazon or Microsoft Azure, or as the case may be, that they're inherently secure. Go ahead. I'll let you
I'll
comment.
be light on this one, right? So no cloud infrastructure, regardless of the name, is secure unless the organization secures it themselves, because they don't sell it to you prepackaged or something that let's say you pay for, let's say you hire support of their services, for example. Naturally, it's onus on you to lock down those environments, right? From wherever your databases sit to wherever your web servers sit, not getting too technical and keeping it light. Got to validate that. Got to make sure that you have segregation within your networks. You don't have sensitive.
So you're telling me Amazon won't do all that for me? Like when I get an S3 bucket up there, it's not totally.
Nope. It is as bare can be with your OS that you love or want to play with, supporting the applications that you're trying to, based on the business that you're running, yada yada yada.
Yeah. So let's step back. When you go into a company and you're brought in to help them with cyber and provide them guidance, sure. What are your ABCs? What are your process steps that you walk them through on how the program should be properly built?
That is a great question. First things first, I really want to understand their business as if I'm the owner, or as I'm stepping in the owner's shoes, as far as what their focus is, what they do, because naturally that gives me a sense of, okay, this is what they do. This is why they're in business, whether it's product or services, it doesn't matter, and understanding their data. So naturally,
now I got to stop you just for a second there, because I think this is a place where a lot of cybersecurity professionals, they have trouble with. A lot of them, they believe that their job is technical, and it's not necessarily to. Why do I care how you sell your widgets, and how that works? So please, I think you're on the right track, and I agree with you. I just want for our audience to hear it from somebody else here.
Yeah, no, but regardless of in our cyber world, in our technical world, because Manoj, you and I can go as technical can be in this conversation, but that's not the focus.
It's not going to help anybody.
Right? It's not going to help anybody, because what if you're talking to someone that has no idea of the technical jargon, or to them they even care about IT? And that's a lot of C-level executives and board of directors for you. They're in the roles that they are because they're good at what they do, or questionable. But point is that you go back, and as cyber professionals, we need to start thinking strategic. Like, how do we come in and solve a problem? Like, if you want to be a virtual CISO, you want to start your own business, then you got to be very, very strategic, because now you're talking to these high-level folks. You say vulnerability and you say CVE, you'll never hear from them again. That's true. Yeah. So
true.
That's my
passion. So you're starting there. You understand the business first, foremost. Now Absolutely. What are we doing as step two?
Yeah, step two is understanding what type of data they're housing, if they're using an MSP, if they're using third-party services, and then really trickling down and understanding to really where their data points are, not technical, but just an overall general understanding. So that's one point of it. The other part of it is this. Sometimes people may say that it's challenged, but it's not, because if you're actually requesting financials, not their whole financials, right. I just need to know the cost of their assets, what they own, their laptops, employees' laptops, desktops, devices, peripherals, yada, yada, on and on and on. Because this gives me an idea of what the cost value, even with depreciation, for example. Yeah, maybe you need to know a little accounting, but not so much. Then you take that information, and then I usually pop it into a formula, and then do a calculation and have a pretty spreadsheet. Now that's a very high level deliverable, because now I'm telling a story. Well, in the case if you get attacked, this is what's going to cost you. And even if that number's low, it doesn't matter. The outside of the box thinking here is, okay, well, what if we lose customers? Well, what's the cost per each of your customer? Bingo.
Yeah, that's a big
now that
number.
that changes the whole ballgame. Let's face financial institution. What's the cost per each member or account holder? Checking, savings, loans, doesn't matter, right? Every person has a cost associated with it, right? That's one part of it. And then the other part of it is, let's say there's 3 reports. I'll give you an example. Like one is a threat report that shows where some of their weaknesses are based on their departments, not their networks.
That's pretty
C-level
cool.
and board of directors understand this because they're like, oh, why is our HR department rated at a 9, a 10, which is like red? Well, if this happens, Mr. or Miss CEO or Mr. or Miss board of directors, you could potentially be out $500,000 if you were to get hit.
You got a lot of personal data that's gone.
And it really it's not an application I use. It's really number crunching using a few deliverables, and then that's the threat report. The other report that I have is a report card, like in grade school, right? Remember in college, you got an A, B, C, so A through F, right? So usually giving their departments a grade. So now they're like, report card, I'm not used to this. All right, yeah, no, why are we rated at an F for our operations department, right? So
that makes it tangible for them. Makes it very. But let me ask you about a friction point here, and because you use the word MSP, what you're prescribing, does the MSP's feathers ever get ruffled over this whole thing and say, well, I can do this with what Ranbir is saying, I'll do this for a lot less, just buy McAfee, man, and you're good, or CrowdStrike. And
the MSPs sell. Okay, well,
yes.
What do you guys think about cyber?
Well,
crickets.
Sell.
Cyber security. You guys don't have a program? Crickets. Your department doesn't have a program to protect your own data. Now we have problems. And this is a lot more MSPs than you think about it. And it's beautiful for us a virtual CISO to partner with an MSP because they can come in and fix a lot of the problems they have internally, and not only internally and externally. Because now they can understand the client, get to know the client, and see exactly what technologies will help them. And it doesn't matter if vendor XYZ, because everybody's trying to get into cybersecurity these days. It's fine. Totally get it.
Yeah. So that's good. That there's a way forward and you have that figured out. And I think that's some good advice. Now, when you're getting back to your process, how do you build the budget? Like oftentimes we see a sticker shock. People are like, well, you're asking me to spend what? And they're thinking, I spending $10 per user per month and I'm done, that kind of a thing.
Yeah,
kid you not.
Well, are you referring to more of like what virtual CISOs
the cybersecurity budget? Like, so when you're instantiating a program, you've gone to the board, given them the reports, you've put the numbers in front of them. How are you building the budget and saying, look, you guys really need to spend X, whatever that may be? I don't know if that's a percentage.
Well, no, that's a great question. And from a strategic standpoint, I would take that information. Of course, they have a budget, but this is going to cost them this much for these technology services, whatever, blah, 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 blah. So that's one point of it. But the beauty of what we do is we prove that return on security investment. So let's say you don't implement all these things and you get hacked. Well, even if it's costing you $1 million, but yet the total cost for all these services were $300,000, including, let's say, my services, just giving you a hypothetical number. Well, I just saved you $700,000 there. Not adding, let's say, loss of customers, being in media, if they get in media, right? If small business, typically not so much, but if that makes sense.
But if I play devil's advocate, I'd say, Ranbir, my insurance company is the one that's out $1 million, not me. So why do I give a shit?
Whoops, well, yeah, no, that. And you know what? That's a fair response. That tells me that C-level executive or board of directors, they don't care about the security of their data. I mean,
yeah. At that point, there's not much you can do.
No, it's just not. But when they get breached, they'll call you. They'll be like,
"No,
call you. So we got breached. Do you mind coming in and unbreaching us? I can't unbreach you, but I can help you, apply the preventive measures. And now you're going to spend more money than what you would have originally spent."
Well, typically they're going to get a visit from a cybersecurity company that does forensics that costs thousands of dollars an hour, and
thousands. No, you're talking about like tens and thousands. Forensic companies are not cheap.
I don't know what Mandiant charges anymore, but it ain't cheap. 3
years ago, one time assessment and no comment here, but $100,000 wasn't worth $100,000. Just let.
Yeah. Well, so you're going to pay that, and then you're going to either get dropped from your insurance or your premiums are going to go through the roof, and you won't be able to say, well, I don't care. My insurance company is going to pay the $1 million.
You want to hear? You want to
And
hear something crazy? And I'm about to say, you want to hear something crazy?
oh,
So
yeah,
with one of my
please.
clients, with one of my clients, cyber insurance companies, you know what they're doing now? They're actually
What?
starting to validate, right? So this one client of theirs, right? If they don't get MFA implemented on all their laptops by a certain time frame, they're not renewing them. This is happening. It's like cyber insurance companies are now wanting validation. Before it was like checkbox, checkbox. Hey, you know what? We're going to make the commission. Yada. It's all a business. It's all number. Insurance.
Yeah, it's
Just like car insurance, the Department of Motor Vehicles or Motor Vehicle Administration won't let you won't let you drive your car without insurance, right? So it's like it's sort of forced, right? Cyber insurance, not so much. Companies still think that protects them, which boggles my mind. And you probably have heard some of those conversations, and just you're like, I don't know, I can't believe what I just heard. So, anyways,
yeah. Well, there's a lot, which gets into the topic of, mitigation versus outsourcing of risk. Where is the point of diminishing returns? How does a company come to and say, look, we're never going to be 100% secure. There will always be some risk. At what point do you have a report or a chart on this one, I guess, that says, you know what, if we get here, some risk we just have to accept, and we're going to try and address it
yeah,
as
no,
best
that's a
as.
great question. So I'm going to bring up Ingram Advisory Group here, where there is a strategic methodology that shows them where they're at now based on a number of the risk level, but it's all based again on their networks and infrastructure. So that gives them an idea. Like, let's say right now they're at, and one of the other consultants who's a very experienced veteran says the lowest he's ever seen was probably like 50 or 60%, like as far as having, security in their infrastructure network.
Yeah, which, so now getting to in the small business world, a lot they are party to third party risk in a big way, right? Because they're typically parts of supply chains upstream and downstream that
Sure.
they might be the HVAC guy, right? Do they understand? Are you seeing these boards and the CEOs and CFOs understand what their relationship to third party risk is?
Yes and no, because either way, we come in and we explain and tell the story at a very in layman's term, as far as strategic, right? Because third party vendors, for example, how do you know, like, let's say if their data secure, or what are they doing to protect your data? So
Right.
it's been interesting from that, the least to say. So
Yeah, it's I think, a lot of times, because, we get this question quite a bit, that we're a small company, we're not a target. We're just who man, I make
not true.
widgets. Who the heck cares, right?
This is an interesting point you're bringing up. There's been, I think years ago, I read something on like a laundromat. I think it was a company that had owned 200 laundromats. Their website was very outdated, and they could care less about security. They care about those change, the dollars
Yeah.
and the quarters, and really that revenue for them is the top, right? So why would they care about security, right? That's not their focus. Their focus is to open up more laundromats. So anyways, their site got hacked. Their database was stored on that web server. So so the competing laundromat worked with some hacker, probably, who knows if they were a hacker. The moral of the story is never assume that you're not a target, because on the dark world, they're busy. They're busier than ever before in the entire world. Time of history, doing scanning subnets and different IP addresses, and so I mean they have tools that they use to automate all this stuff. So don't think, the least to say, that you won't be the next victim, because I can guarantee that a lot of these organizations have been hacked. They just don't know about it. Even the big ones, the small, even a cybersecurity company got hacked. You know what I'm
Oh
talking about?
yeah, I
Even
agree
though,
with you. I mean,
yeah,
yesterday we had Kareem Hijazi on the program, and he talked about that in detail as well, that there's a lot of people that have been hacked, and they're just their environments, they're lying dormant in those
Well,
environments.
and to your
And
point,
finding,
yeah,
I'm sorry,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
No, high school kids, like they were bored. And your parents probably got money. Fine. No, I'm just making it up. But my point is that, like, jokes aside, don't ever think that it would be a kid, like super genius kid, 9 or 10, up to adults doing this. Because remember, they're in that line of work because they make maybe 20-fold than we do. That's why we're in our line of work.
How do you see the last question here? The landscape evolving in cybersecurity as far as the threat space goes against
No, that's a
businesses?
great question. I see cybersecurity finally becoming cybersecurity department, like its own entity in lots of organizations where you have opposite security operations, insider threat, threat intelligence, incident response, which is part of operations, vulnerability management, governance, risk compliance. I mean, that's not IT. That that is so many different subcomponents of cybersecurity, and you're seeing it eventually grow and expand into more different subcomponents. Like, are we talking about? I mean, this is going to sound a little further advanced, but quantum theory or quantum computing, like you're going from single state to multi-state or linear machines to multi-state machines. Well, how do you protect that, right? How do you prevent that? Like when we go to, let's say robotics, artificial intelligence,
Sure.
and machines having, sort of conscious or emotion state of mind. So, as scary as that sounds, that's where we're headed. So that's where cybersecurity landscape is at. Nanobots. How do you protect Internet of Thing devices? Hospitals don't give a crap. They,
Oh, they're starting
often,
to. They've been
this.
shut
We
down.
can
How
talk about
many have
health
been shut
insurance.
down?
Have we talk about health insurance premiums and how much it costs us and why a lot of people don't have health insurance? Because it's insanely expensive here, right? But again, hospitals charge what they charge and then do what they do. But how are they protecting their devices? How are they segregating? I can guarantee you that they're not. So,
Well, I can see a $50 million payout if somebody, I hope it never happens, but if somebody were to pass away on the operating table because a heart lung machine failed because they got
I
hacked.
mean,
So,
Meta is advertising, or Metaverse is advertising, you know, their metaverse and in using it for
okay.
education and doing unsearch. So who's doing things to prevent those things from being hacked? During a session. And I mean, I'm pretty sure Meta has a whole team. But it just goes to show that you always need somebody coming from the outside in. It's just like those big consulting firms out there. Why did they get into business? Because the processes were just not working. They were
Right.
becoming so dated and repetitive that the structure still holds in a very old school fashion today in a lot of corporations. A title is great. It's fine. You're at a certain level of a company, but at the end of the day, aren't you still part of the same company to solve a problem?
Yes.
And when it comes to your data is priceless. There's no price tag to it. So when you get hacked and your data is being sold, or your lists are being sold to your competitors, you have bigger problems. You
Well,
see.
I think you have a great mindset, and I'm sure you're going to be immensely successful in this space.
Thank
But
you, and yeah, definitely thank you. And I definitely look forward to having conversations with you, Manoj. It's really been great. I'm glad you understand it, you get it, but we're just trying to spread the word.
we're on an educational mission here. And, also give you a chance to, have some economic benefits. So if you have anything you'd like to plug here in the last couple minutes, any appearances you're doing, any shows you're on, any
No,
talks,
you
whatever
know,
you'd like, the floor is yours,
I
whatever
you
you'd
know
like.
it's interesting. I started this company, just like out of thin air, right? No, but anyways, just going into it and just not knowing where it would end up, and here I am today. Where you reached out to me and I just having a genuine, authentic conversation. I just feel that cybersecurity is it's not a solo thing anymore. Like we got to work together. A leader's got to collaborate. Like there, I get it. You're a CISO and yeah, you're up there and sort of you like that needs to, the sort of ego part needs to just go out the window. I don't agree with it anymore. I think everybody has to work together. I think we're all here after a mission. We're here to create. We're here to co-create and work together and build something even bigger. right? Everybody wins. It's not even about the amount you charge or the revenue, right? It's spreading a story, because a story has endless value to it, and it can just go on, and just over time it improves, it becomes better, right? So, but naturally, if we don't stick together as cyber resources here, then the leaders of tomorrow just goes back to square one, right?
Well, that's a very spiritual outlook, but that's a great way to end this conversation.
Thank you.
People will always remember the first part and the last part. So I hope,
Absolutely.
that I hope they remember that. That's a very nice outlook. Thank you for that, Ranbir.
Absolutely. Manoj, in maybe less than a year, we may be on stages presenting to thousands of people.
Be
That's my
more
vision.
than happy to. And you know what? Don't be a stranger here. If you have some new things that you'd like to let everybody know about, feel free to reach out to us. Even if we do like a 10-minute short, we'd love to have you back.
No, absolutely. Same here. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and definitely don't be a stranger. I'm pretty sure we could do some big things together. Love it.
Sounds great. Take care.